Hey there guys, welcome to this week's episode of Matthew Presents, where I'm going to be continuing my best possible series, where this week I'm going to be going through all the episode 7s, and as always picking my favourite. So sit back and enjoy. So then guys, today we're going to be talking about all the episode 7s, and let me tell you, this is one hell of a lineup of stories. Very difficult to choose my favourite. I think briefly looking over them before I started recording, there's one, I think maybe two that aren't that good. Well, none of them are really bad. There's only one that's a little bit iffy, really, but yeah, most of these are, I think actually all of them are just one-part stories. I don't think any of them are actually two parts. No, I think they're all singular stories, and pretty much all of them are solid. There's not one to rant about. There's not one standout awful episode, but there is one that's my favourite, and it wins by a nitpick, a very small nitpick. So without any further ado, let's begin with the episode 7s, of course starting with series 1, which was The Long Game. Now, The Long Game's a funny one because I'm not going to lie, it's not the greatest story. It's far from the best. Adam is a very annoying character. Simon Pegg was good as the editor, although I would have preferred the editor to have been more of a vicious threat than a comic threat. The Jagrafess wasn't the most amazing enemy. The most fascinating thing about the Jagrafess was his name, really. But it was nice. It was nice to go in this game station. It was a nice atmosphere, I think. But like a few episodes, there's not much that really intrigues me about The Long Game. And I think the main reason to why this is, well, I wouldn't say overshadowed, but the reason why people don't like it as much is because it was in such a consistent series. Series 1 was pretty much consistent throughout. There was hardly a really bad episode. And I think the fact that this came after Dalek and was before Father's Day, two unbelievably good episodes, The Long Game kind of gets forgotten about. And I've always thought, what if The Long Game was in Series 2? Or a different series? If it was in a different series, would it be looked at as a better story? Because I'm not saying it's a great story or anything. It's not great, but it's not terrible either. But my theory is, I just think The Long Game isn't given, well, I wouldn't say it deserves credit, but it's not liked as much as it could be, because it's surrounded by stories that are just so much better. And if you were to look at Series 1, The Long Game would, it'd be nice and consistent, and there'd be a dip when it reached The Long Game. But in other series, like Series 2, you'd get the Idiots Lambton, you'd get Fear Her, you'd get Love and Monsters, which are a lot worse than this episode. So this episode would look better. So that's my theory. I think this episode would look better in a different series. So I think the only reason it's not liked as much is because Adam's annoying, the story isn't the most thrilling, and it's just surrounded by so many better stories. So despite it not being the best, I'd still give The Long Game a 6 out of 10. So, in Series 2, we had the Idiots Lambton. This is a difficult one for me because in DWM it was voted quite low. A lot of people dislike it, and the first time I watched it, I quite enjoyed it. But I find with this story, the more I watch it, the more I don't like it. I mean, I don't hate it at all, and there are some stories that are a lot worse if you ask me, but looking at Series 2, apart from Love and Monsters, and maybe Fear Her, Yeah, quite a few bad episodes. This is probably in one of the weakest. I mean, it's not weak for a really bad reason, but it just seems quite a forgettable episode. The Wire was like a pantomime villain. I didn't like the woman who was the Wire because she would make an evil laugh and she had a really posh voice and she just seemed like that generic panto villain, and I didn't really like her at all. Um, I like the character of was it Jimmy, that young guy, that young lad who was helping the Doctor and Rose. Who had that really dickhead of a father who I wanted to punch in the face at times. I liked his character, and I liked the set designs for this episode. It felt like you were in 1950. Was it? I think it was 1950s. You felt like you were there at the Queen's coronation, and I like the way that The Wire was using a historical event, because I'm a sucker for episodes that use historical events, and yeah, using obviously the Queen's coronation, a massive event with loads of people watching, using that to their advantage. That's a motive that makes sense. Using it, using the time perfectly. But the Wire itself let it down. I think the motive worked, the setting worked, everything would have worked very well, but the Wire didn't, and the way that it made people faceless was quite creepy at first, but now looking back on it, I'm not really that bothered. So I guess the Idiots Lantern, a bit like the Long Game, if it was in a different series, maybe it would be a bit better, but it's not going to ever be stopped at being a forgettable episode for me. And I think The Wire dragged it down, so I'd probably give the Idiots Lantern a 4 out of 10. Now on to another episode that is not liked by many. Another episode that I do not hate. Another episode that I am not frustrated at when I watch it, like some Wedding of River Song. But an episode that is weak, and an episode with a villain that I am not a fan of, that again is a bit generic and takes me out of the story. 42, and it's quite similar to the Idiot's Lantern when you think about it. I'm talking about it anyway, because another story with a good premise, another story with great set design. There wasn't 1 second where I doubted that they were on a ship that was hurtling towards the sun. It felt quite at home, the fact that they were in our solar system heading towards the sun. But yeah, the few things about this episode that I didn't like. One, 42, that was only the title because that was the length of the episode, pretty much. The sun becoming a creature that possesses people, that is a good premise, just like there was a good premise in The Idiot's Lantern, but again, it wasn't delivered particularly well. I think the sun possessing people, making them be like, burn with me, that was a bit generic, and I thought that was, yeah, I don't know, it seemed like it had been done before, that nothing new, nothing shocked me, nothing made me go, wow, oh my god, look at this. The only time that it made me go, oh my god, is when it took over the Doctor, because that was when it truly made me think, wow, this thing's actually quite powerful. But apart from that, I wasn't really that bothered. The characters were good though, but I don't get how Martha and that guy had to answer all these like pub quiz questions to get to the front of the ship. I didn't get that at all. I thought that was just quite lazy, and that really didn't really intertwine with the story. It just didn't really fit with it. They could have done that so much differently. The only part of the story that really interested me is when the Doctor was possessed, and when Martha was getting took away in that escape pod to the sun. I was generally thinking, oh my god, Doctor, save her. But apart from that, nothing else really takes me by surprise in this story. Nothing makes me go, wow, 42. It's nothing that hasn't been done before, really. So again, good premise, good characters, but the villain lets it down for me. So an episode that could have been executed better, maybe. So I'd probably give 42 a 5 out of 10. Now we're into Series 4 and the Unicorn and the Wasp, and I don't have to repeat myself. You all know how much of a sucker I am for episodes like this. An historical character in a historical setting, and I love these episodes because they bring Doctor Who so close to reality, and this episode could not have been closer to reality, because we all know that Agatha Christie disappeared for no one knows why, and she arrived in Harrogate. She lost her memory, and Doctor Who used that to their advantage and went, you know what, we're going to shove a historical episode into that, and that's exactly what they did. And I freaking love this. It's such a good story. It's like a whodunit. You know, I love them stories where you've got loads of characters and you've got to decide. It's the kind of episode where you begin and you go, right, I'm going to say he did it or she did it. And then you've got to look through the episode and see who was right. I love episodes like that so much. I love whodunits. I love historical figures. And this basically shoved them both together, really. And the Wasp, many people think, oh, a giant wasp, what a stupid villain. But it would have been a stupid villain if it didn't have the backstory they gave it. And it made perfect sense that, you know, I think it was back in, was it India or some country, I can't remember. One of the characters was bitten by what they thought was like a mosquito or something, and it turned out to turn him into this giant wasp, or a Vesperform as they're called. And yeah, it would have been a ridiculous enemy if it didn't have that backstory, but that made the enemy make sense and made it legitimate in this story. And I thought the Doctor working with Agatha Christie was great. You know, two great minds. You know, and seeing the Doctor solve a murder mystery is just amazing. And I love the way that at times Agatha Christie outthought the Doctor. It was just great to see her, and she was portrayed brilliantly by the actress who played her. And it all just made perfect sense at the end with Agatha Christie losing her memory. And I love the little touch at the end when she written the book of the Wasp, and she credited Donna Noble, which I thought was just amazing. So The Unicorn and the Wasp is just such a great historical story, one that I'll always go back and watch. The set design was incredible, the characters were amazing, I was totally invested in this story, and I think after Vincent and the Doctor, it's probably my favourite historical episode so far, so I'd probably give The Unicorn and the Wasp an 8 out of 10. Now we're into Series 5 with Amy's Choice, and this again is another brilliant episode, a very clever episode as well, an episode that's not necessarily been done before, and the companion was at the heart of it, which is always great to see the companion have such a major part in the episode, and great to see how this episode affected her life, because Amy had a normal life with the Doctor, and she had this other life which was like her perfect life, her and Rory, she's having a baby, they're living in a lovely place and everything's all nice, and she had to choose between them. And I love episodes where it's a bit like The Girl Who Waited, when there's a massive choice to be made, and it's based around the companion. I think them episodes are fantastic, and this was a great story. I mean, the Dream Lord was amazing. I think the guy that played the Dream Lord was brilliant, and I think he was a great villain, and I hope he comes back one day, even though I have a feeling he won't. I really think he should, because he just messed with the Doctor's head, he messed with all their heads. It was just a great villain. But one thing that was a bit strange was old people attacking, and old people going on a killing spree. I thought that was a bit strange and a bit weird, but nevertheless that was what this story was, really, a bit strange and a bit weird, but it worked very well. So yeah, I love the dynamic between Amy choosing. At times I really didn't know what life she was going to choose, and that just proves how invested I was in this story. But of course, in the end, she chose life with the Doctor, giving up her perfect life after, as always, Rory got killed. Tell me something new. But yeah, a fantastic story. Amy's Choice is brilliant. It's up there with one of the best in Series 5, I think, so I'd probably give it a 7.5 out of 10. Now on to Series 6, A Good Man Goes to Who Addicts Reviews. Get it? Because was the initials for Who Addicts? No, doesn't matter. But yes, anyway, Series 6, A Good Man Goes to War. And I'm not going to hold back, I'm just going to say it. A Good Man Goes to War is my favourite episode of Series 6. And it gives such a great boost to the story arc before it was utterly smashed in the finale. Roll on episode 13. It's just, I might have to do the Wedding of River song separately. I mean, good God help me in that video, it's going to be so long. Anyway, yes, A Good Man Goes to War is such a freaking great story. And at first, I always thought the split shouldn't have been there. The split should have been before A Good Man Goes to War. But honestly, I'm so glad the split happened. I'm glad that the split happened in Series 6. I'm not so glad it happened in Series 7. But I can see why. I can see what Tom means, and I'm starting to agree with Tom Dix a lot more recently, which is worrying me a bit. But the split worked. I mean, you know, seeing River, the revelation that she was Amy's daughter, I mean, that just left us gagging for more. And this is exactly what this episode did perfectly. It left us gagging for more. Seeing Amy in this situation, the Doctor coming in to save her, showed the dark side of the Doctor, the way that he could literally, an army, could be in so much fear by the mention of his name. And the Doctor as a character was summed up at the end. You know, I mean, River has been in some stories and she's been there for no reason. She's been wasted, or she just shouldn't have been there at all because she's just ruined the story. But seriously, in A Good Man Goes to War, the fact that she was not in it and she came in it at the end, she made such an impact in the end. Other than that, the Headless Monks were great. The war that was happening on the ship was fantastic, and I love the way that we got to see the Doctor almost as like an army general. You know, the Time War fighting side of him kind of came out because, you know, we could tell that he's been in war before, the way that he was marching around, giving orders, organising it like he'd been in a scenario like this before. And I love seeing the 11th Doctor angry, and, you know, when he had that go at Colonel Runaway, that was just a scene that just took me back. I was in shock at what the 11th Doctor was like in this episode. He was so angry, and it gave such depth to his character, and it's one of the best Matt Smith performances I think that he ever gave in his tenure. And like I said, the ending was amazing. It's one of the best twists in Modern Who, if one of the best twists ever. And all seems lost. You know, some people have been killed. You know, the Doctor's in guilt because once again people have died in his name, trying to save him. And just to make it even worse, River appears. He has a go at her, and it's like, you know, don't have a go at River. You know, she's came late, and that revelation at the end when turns out River is Amy's daughter. I mean, no one saw that coming. I mean, I've never, ever since the Four Knox story, nothing has ever took me aback like that did. It was shocking, and the speech that she gave to the Doctor, you know, basically saying, you know, all these people have died because of you. This is all you're doing. And the Doctor knew she was right, and the guilt in his face was amazing. And River really opened our eyes to see that this was actually the Doctor's fault, and it showed the dark side of him. And after he left, you know, Amy was holding up a gun to her head, and it was like, oh my God, you know, stuff's really got out of control. And again, River's speech at the end, you know, they don't have a word for pond because the only water in the forest is the river. I mean, talk about an amazing script. What a fantastic script this was. And the ending left us gagging for more. So I could go on and on about why I love A Good Man Goes to War. Such a great episode for the Doctor more than anyone, and for River Song, and for the story arc in general. Too bad it was utterly ruined at the end. So I'd probably give A Good Man Goes to War a 9 out of 10. Now on to the Rings of Akhaten. Now, I've wanted to do a video on this for so long, and this is my opportunity to try and cram everything in a matter of 2 minutes. The Rings of Akhaten is one of the most underrated stories in Modern Who. It was ranked so goddamn low in the DWM, and I don't know why people hate it. I mean, we're just so used to stories ending, you know, with techno-babble endings, flicking switches, Journey's End, you know, and just cop-out endings. And some of the solutions to some stories have dragged the episode down. Like, they've been great up until the ending, and the ending has ruined it. Like The Wedding of River Song, and Journey's End, and The Big Bang, and quite a few series finales. But anyway, this story was different. Why does every story have to have death, and horror, and homicide, and genocide, and murder, and sadness in it? This was a beautiful story that didn't mess with your mind like most of Moffat's stories. It's just one that you could enjoy, and I really did enjoy it. And a few things might get at people like, oh, this big star called the Grandfather feeds off people's memories. What a load of bollocks and all this. But I just thought it was beautiful. And the characters were very good as well, because a lot of child actors in Doctor Who have been terrible, and they've just took you out the story. But the child actor who played that young girl, what was she called? I can't remember what she was called now, but it'll come to me after I've recorded this watch. But yeah, she was fantastic as that little girl. The 11th Doctor was amazing. Matt Smith's one of his best performances in this. And it was also great for Clara, because at the start, the story started with seeing how she was born, you know, with the leaf, and how that affected her parents getting together. And it just showed that, you know, every single one of us is unique in the universe, and it showed the beauty of each and every one of us. You know, that all these little small circumstances led to our creation, and then that will lead on to other things. And it showed how much the universe is in flux, and how great things can happen by pretty much nothing. And it's just such a great story that had so many great morals behind it. People tend to forget, you know, what this story meant and the message it was trying to get across. And the ending was amazing because, you know, instead of, like I said, fighting off an enemy with all these technologies and weapons and stuff like that. You fought it back with memories, and as much as people might think that's soppy bollocks, I loved it because it could feed off all these people's memories because they weren't strong enough. And then it gets the Doctor, the man in the universe that has had possibly the worst memories imaginable. He saw things that no one in hell would even ever want to see. And the fact that he gave that amazing speech at the end and basically poured out his emotions, not just showed Matt's great acting, but it showed the Doctor deep down, you know, how hurt he has been because of the things he's seen. And he poured out his emotion. And it's something we rarely see from the Doctor, really. And he poured out his emotion and he destroyed this villain. And if that's not a beautiful ending, I don't know what is. And there was another part of the story where that young girl was fearing for her life, and the Doctor knelt down and he just said, "You are unique in the universe." You know, there was a massive explosion, a massive star that blew up and died, and it caused all these things. Just such a beautiful story, and it gets so overlooked. So The Rings of Akhaten is just a damn right gorgeous story that I would watch over and over again. For anyone who's watched it once and thinks it's rubbish, seriously, go back, rewatch it, think about its message, think about its morals, and don't take it for granted because it's such a great story. The Rings of Akhaten has to have a 9 out of 10. I freaking love it. So to conclude episode 7, what a great episode it's been. It's one that I've been looking forward to because there's some stories I've been looking forward to talking about, not just for the good reasons, but for the bad reasons as well. And it's a difficult one to choose from. Narrowing it down to 2, it would probably be A Good Man Goes to War and The Rings of Akhaten. And I love The Rings of Akhaten so much, I will stick up to that episode till the end because it's just so beautiful. But it's not the best episode 7 because my favourite episode 7 goes to one that gave the Doctor so much depth. It was such a powerful episode and it pushed the story arc of Series 6 so much. Too bad it was ruined, but my favourite episode 7 has to go to the Series 6 episode, A Good Man Goes to. So then guys, thank you for watching this week's video. As always, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel and comment below your favourite episode 7 of NuWho. Tell me what it is and why in the comment section below. But until then guys, I'll be seeing you this Friday for when I continue this series with my best possible series, episode 8. Until then, have a good week guys.